Captain Lyra Trenholm had a migraine the size of a neutron star, which was fitting considering she just hauled her sorry crew to the ascent of the galaxy. The Thalkiri homeworld wasn't exactly on any travel brochure. It was more like a cosmic landfill with a temple plopped in the middle, worshipped by aliens who probably thought indoor plumbing was a kind of witchcraft. She squinted at the view screen, the temple looming like a foreboding pimple on the planet's surface. "All right, folks," she announced. "Time to see if this temple is full of ancient secrets or just more dust and disappointment." Her crew, a motley collection of misfits and social rejects that made a barroom on a Friday night look like a Nobel convention, seemed less than enthused. First Officer Dreyfus, a man whose face seemed permanently fixed in a wince, shrugged. "I bet my last ration packet's just another pile of rocks." "No need for optimism, Dreyfus," Lyra replied, tapping her blaster. "It might be a pile of rocks with traps, or even better, a curse." She turned to their resident tech wizard, a lanky woman named Juno who looked like she'd hacked the universe when she was bored. "What do you think, Juno? Any chance we accidentally awaken an ancient evil today?" Juno snorted, eyes still glued to her tablet. "Wouldn't be the first time, Captain. Remember that time on Argon Roman 4? Please," Lyra grimaced. "One existential threat at a time." Their pilot, Fargo, was busy chewing on what looked suspiciously like a piece of rubber. "I just hope the Thalkiri don't mind us poking around their sacred temple. Wouldn't want to start an interstellar incident." "Oh, I'm sure they won't mind," Lyra said, sarcasm dripping like acid rain. "They invited us with open claws and ominous chanting." The ship juddered to a halt above the temple, its ancient stones glistening like they'd been polished with the tears of a million unlucky souls. Lyra adjusted her utility belt, which was less about utilities and more about making her feel like she was doing something important. "All right, let's get this over with. Try not to touch anything that looks too cursed." The airlock hissed open, revealing a temple courtyard that smelled like wet dog and regret. The architecture was a mishmash of spires and domes, like someone gave a toddler a cosmic Lego set and too much caffeine. Lyra glanced at her team. "Stay sharp. If anything jumps out, scream first, shoot later." They made their way to the temple entrance, the stones underfoot whispering old secrets that sounded suspiciously like, "Turn back while you can." Lyra ignored them. She'd never been one for taking advice, especially from rocks. Inside, the temple was dark, lit only by the eerie glow of bioluminescent moss clinging to the walls. It was like walking into a nightclub that hadn't paid its electric bill. "Well, this is cozy," Juno remarked, scanning the room with her device. "I think they skipped the interior decorator. Or they ate them," Fargo added helpfully. As they ventured deeper, the walls seemed to close in, narrowing like the hopes of a school dropout. Lyra's instincts were screaming louder than a banshee with a megaphone. "Anyone else feel like we're being watched?" "Probably just your paranoia," Dreyfus replied. "Or this place is haunted." "Fantastic," Lyra muttered. "Just what I needed." They reached what looked like the main chamber, a vast space dominated by a stone altar that had seen better days, probably around the same time the Thalkiri discovered fire. The altar had carvings that screamed cosmic doom, or maybe that was just her imagination. Lyra approached carefully, a sense of unease prickling at her spine like an unwelcome relative at a family reunion. "All right, let's see what all the fuss is about." Juno started tapping away at her device, the screen flickering like it was powered by hope and desperation. "There's definitely some energy readings here, but they're unusual." "Define unusual," Lyra said, already regretting asking. "Unusual as in we might have just poked a sleeping giant kind of unusual," Juno replied, eyebrows arching. The moment she said it, the temple seemed to hum with a low, ominous vibration, as if it was clearing its throat. Lyra's hand went to her blaster, a reflex born from too many bad situations and not enough time off. "Everyone back up." The floor started to glow, strange symbols lighting up like a particularly cursed disco floor. Dreyfus backed away quickly, nearly tripping over his own feet. Captain, I think we pissed it off." "You think?" Lyra snapped, eyes scanning for anything resembling an exit. "Juno, shut it down, whatever it is." Juno was already frantically swiping at her tablet, fingers moving faster than a caffeine addict on a keyboard. "I'm trying, but this thing's got a mind of its own." The hum grew louder, the ground vibrating beneath them like the universe's worst massage chair. Fargo glanced up, eyes wide. "Captain, I don't like where this is going." "Join the club," Lyra replied, heart pounding like it was auditioning for a horror movie. "Everyone, get ready to run." Suddenly, the symbols flared brightly, and an energy wave surged from the altar, sweeping through the room like an unwelcome tidal wave of cosmic fun. Lyra felt her skin tingle, hair standing on end as she staggered back, barely keeping her balance. "What the hell was that?" Dreyfus shouted, brushing sparks out of his hair. "Ancient alien surprise party," Lyra grumbled, shaking off the dizzying effect. "Juno, report." "Whatever we triggered, it's sending out signals like a beacon," Juno replied, sounding more fascinated than scared. "The energy's off the charts." "Great," Lyra muttered. "Any chance we can turn it back off?" "Not unless you want to play cosmic electrician," Juno said, hands still flying over her device. The temple seemed to pulse now, a rhythmic throb that suggested it was either alive or really, really angry. Lyra took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "All right, team, change of plans. We figure out what this thing's yelling about and try not to get ourselves turned into space dust." Fargo groaned, clearly not thrilled about the prospect of being vaporized. "Why do I get the feeling this isn't covered in my contract?" "Because we lie to you, Fargo," Lyra replied dryly. "Now shut up and help us not die." The ground shuddered again, the glow from the altar casting strange shadows that danced like demons at a rave. Lyra felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. "Let's move, people, before this thing decides to do more than just grumble." They retraced their steps, the temple seeming to close around them like the jaws of some ancient beast. Lyra kept her blaster ready, eyes scanning for any sign of Valkyrie or worse, whatever the hell they might have accidentally awoken. As they reached the courtyard, the sky above them crackled with energy, the wormhole nearby swirling in a frenzy of cosmic chaos. "Looks like we've got company," Fargo observed, nodding towards the wormhole. "Probably not the welcoming committee we hoped for," Lyra muttered, mind racing. "Dreyfus, get us a signal back to base. Juno, keep working on those readings. We need to know what we're dealing with." The sense of unease only grew as they moved, the stones underfoot vibrating with every step like the heartbeat of a giant best left undisturbed. Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that they'd just played a very dangerous game of cosmic Jenga, and the tower was about to come crashing down. As they reached the ship, the sense of foreboding had grown into a full-blown roar, the energy from the temple reaching a fever pitch. "Get us airborne," Lyra ordered, strapping herself into the command chair. "And someone remind me never to vacation on a Valkyrie planet again." Fargo didn't need to be told twice, fingers dancing over the controls as the ship powered up. "Let's just hope we didn't open something we can't close," he muttered, eyes fixed on the swirling chaos outside. Lyra watched the temple shrink away as they lifted off, the planet receding into the distance like a bad memory. But the sense of unease clung to her, a shadow she couldn't shake. Whatever they'd triggered, she had the distinct feeling it wasn't done with them yet. As the ship broke through the atmosphere, she allowed herself a moment of dark humor, a grim smile tugging at her lips. "Well, folks, if the universe doesn't kill us, I'm sure the paperwork will." The view ahead was a swirl of stars and void, the wormhole looming ominously like a cosmic mouth ready to swallow them whole. Lyra took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next. Because in the grand scheme of things, humans had a knack for surviving the impossible, even if it was only long enough to make things worse. Captain Lyra Trenholm sat in the slightly uncomfortable captain's chair, her blaster within reach, and her mind buzzing with the kind of headache that only cosmic mysteries could produce. The ship hummed around them, a comforting, albeit slightly wobbly, presence in the middle of an increasingly uncomforting situation. "All right, let's get some answers before I start wishing for an early retirement," she muttered, rubbing her temples. First Officer Dreyfus leaned against the console, looking as though life had personally disappointed him once again. "If you retire, can I have your chair? It's got a nice wear to it." "Sure," Lyra replied dryly. "You can have it along with all the migraines that come with it." Fargo, their pilot, was busy maneuvering the ship through the cosmic chaos, eyes flicking between displays like a squirt on caffeine. "I don't suppose anyone's called the Valkyrie to apologize for whatever cosmic oopsie we just committed." Juno, still glued to her tablet, let out a snort. "Pretty sure they're working on a strongly worded stargram right now, complete with ominous threats and maybe an ancient curse or two." The view screen crackled to life, revealing a Valkyrie representative whose expression was more sour than a lemon in a vinegar bath. "Humans," he spat, the word sounding like a curse in itself. "You have desecrated our sacred temple. The punishment for such heresy is death." "Odd diplomacy," Lyra said with a half-hearted smile. "Always a pleasure." The Valkyrie was not amused. "You have awoken the sleeper, the ancient one who lies beneath our world. This is a grave sin." Lyra held up a hand, hoping to delay the impending doom long enough to think of something clever. "Look, we didn't mean to wake your ancient whatever. We've all had our fair share of waking up grumpy from a nap, right?" Dreyfus raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, especially when your nap ends with an ancient cosmic entity trying to eat your face." Ignoring him, Lyra continued, "How about we work together to figure out how to, put it back to sleep?" The representative's eyes narrowed, his tentacles twitching in what looked like restrained fury or maybe just a bad case of cosmic allergies. "The sleeper shall not rest until it is appeased, and your presence has made it restless." "Restless ancient cosmic beings," Juno muttered, eyes never leaving her tablet. "That's just what we needed," Lyra sighed. "So what does it take to appease this sleeper? A lullaby, a sacrificial lamb, a really good bedtime story." The Valkyrie didn't blink. "Blood. The blood of the transgressors." "Of course," Dreyfus murmured in mock cheerfulness. "Because why would anything be simple?" Fargo glanced over his shoulder, a nervous twitch in his eye. "Captain, I really don't like where this conversation is heading." "Join the club," Lyra replied grimly. "Listen, Mr. Tentacles, I am Vorax," the Valkyrie interjected with a growl. "Fine, Vorax," Lyra said, rolling her eyes. "How about we skip the blood sacrifice and find a different solution? Maybe there's a way to turn this thing off without needing a mop." Vorax's expression remained stony. "There is only one way to appease the sleeper, and that is through the rituals of old." Lyra exchanged a look with Dreyfus, who shrugged. "Guess we better start brushing up on ancient Valkyrie customs." "Great," Juno said, typing furiously, "because learning alien rituals was on my to-do list right after don't get vaporized by ancient cosmic deities." Vorax remained on the screen, a silent testament to the seriousness of their situation. Lyra took a deep breath, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "All right, Vorax. We'll work with you to solve this without needless bloodshed. In the meantime, maybe you can give us a crash course in sleeper appeasement." The Valkyrie's eyes narrowed, but he gave a reluctant nod. "Very well, but know this, the sleeper's wrath is not easily calmed." The screen went dark, leaving Lyra and her crew to contemplate their next move. The weight of the situation pressed down like a black hole on her shoulders. "Well, folks," she said, forcing levity into her tone, "looks like we're in for a cosmic crash course in diplomacy and ancient rituals. Who's excited?" Fargo raised a hand, albeit half-heartedly. "Excited to not die, sure. Excited about the rest, not so much." Lyra chuckled, a sound that was more desperate than amused. "Let's get to work then. Juno, dig through those readings. Dreyfus, keep an eye on the Valkyrie channels for any sudden movements. And Fargo, keep us steady." "Steady as she goes, Cap," Fargo replied, fingers tapping a nervous beat on the controls. The tension in the air was thicker than the cloud of cosmic dust outside. The The temple's hum seemed to follow them, a spectral reminder that they were far from safe. Lyra settled back in her chair, staring at it all with a mix of determination and exhaustion. If we get out of this alive, remind me to never volunteer for anything involving ancient ruins again. Dreyfus smirked. I'll add it to the list of things to remind you about when we're not being hunted by galactic deities. The Iors crawled by like a snail in molasses, each second stretching into an eternity of anticipation. The crew worked tirelessly, their banter filling the cabin with a semblance of normalcy despite the looming threat. "Any luck with those readings, Juno?" Lyra asked, not for the first time. Juno shook her head, her patience wearing thin. "This thing's more encrypted than a politician's tax returns, but I'm getting closer. I think." "Think faster," Dreyfus said, glancing at the view screen that showed the Valkyrie fleet moving with a purpose that suggested they weren't just here for a casual chat. "Diplomatic incident brewing, Captain," Fargo said, his voice strained. "And I don't think they're bringing us welcome baskets. More like unwelcome baskets," Dreyfus quipped, "complete with angry mobs and pitchforks." Lyra massaged her temples again, feeling the familiar throb of pressure behind her eyes. "All right, team, let's double down and get our act together." The only thing worse than waking a cosmic horror is dealing with an angry alien race that thinks we're the second coming of bad luck. Juno's eyes lit up in triumph as she finally cracked part of the code. "Got it. There's a sequence here. Something about energy synchronization and cosmic harmonics. It's like playing a celestial xylophone." Lyra leaned forward, interest piqued. "So in layman's terms, how do we use that to put the sleeper back to bed?" Juno grinned, a hint of mischief in her eyes. "Simple. We just have to hit the right notes and hope we don't accidentally play an intergalactic funeral march." "That sounds reassuring," Dreyfus said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "No pressure or anything." Ignoring him, Lyra focused on Juno. "Can you do it?" "Can I?" Juno echoed, feigning indignation. "Captain, I once hacked a planetary defense grid using nothing but a coffee machine and a paperclip. Of course I can do it." "Good. Then let's make some music," Lyra said, her spirits lifting despite the gravity of their situation. As Juno worked her magic on the tablet, the ship vibrated under the strain of the cosmic forces at play. The Valkyrie fleet loomed closer, their weapons undoubtedly locked and loaded. "Time's running out, Captain," Fargo warned, his voice a tight wire of stress. "I know," Lyra replied, watching the view screen as if it might offer some divine insight. Juno's fingers danced over the controls, the ship system singing a symphony of beeps and whirs. The temple's hum changed in pitch, a subtle shift that hinted at something more than mere noise. "Almost got it," Juno muttered, her focus razor-sharp. Lyra held her breath, the tension in the cabin so thick it could have been a new element on the periodic table. The moment stretched on, each second a countdown to potential disaster. Then, with a final flourish, Juno hit the last sequence of keys. The temple's hum shifted into something almost melodic, a sound that resonated through the ship like the soothing touch of a lullaby. "Did it work?" Dreyfus asked, his skepticism a blanket over the tentative hope. Lyra stared at the view screen, watching as the Valkyrie fleet hesitated, their advance faltering. The energy readings from the temple slowly diminished, the cosmic storm outside calming to a gentle swirl. "I think it did," Lyra said, relief flooding her voice. "Whatever Juno did, it's working." Fargo let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "I can't believe it, we're not going to die." "Not today, anyway," Lyra said with a tired smile. The view screen flickered back to life, Vorax's face filling the screen. His expression was still severe, but the fire of anger had dimmed to a simmer. "You have succeeded in appeasing the sleeper humans. The rituals may yet continue." "Glad to hear it," Lyra said, letting out a breath. "Maybe next time, let's skip the whole death and destruction phase of negotiations, yeah." Vorax's mouth twitched in what might have been the Valkyrie equivalent of a smile. "Perhaps. But for now, you are free to leave with your lives." "That's our cue," Dreyfus said, already keying in the coordinates to get them the hell out of Thalkiri space. As the ship made its way out of the gravitational pull of the planet, Lyra allowed herself a moment of peace, her headache finally easing. Good work, team. Let's get back to somewhere that doesn't involve ancient curses or angry alien deities. Juno leaned back, stretching her fingers. And maybe a drink, or several, on me, Lyra promised, feeling lighter than she had in days. After all, we just lived through a cosmic horror story. I think we've earned it. With a final glance at the view screen and the rapidly shrinking planet, Lyra settled back, ready to face whatever came next. Because if there was one thing humans were good at, it was finding trouble and surviving it, at least long enough to tell the tale with a drink in hand. The ship groaned as an unsettling rumble vibrated through its hull, like it was being shaken by some angry cosmic bartender. Lyra Trenholm, still wondering if she should have chosen a career with less impending doom, checked the readouts. The gravitational anomalies outside were doing a merry jig, throwing off every system they had. Gravitational anomalies, Dreyfus drawled as he leaned against the console, arms crossed like he was auditioning for a role as the universe's most disappointed man. Just what we need. Like we're not already juggling cosmic horror and an alien race with a severe case of sacred templeitis. Hey, look on the bright side, Fargo, the pilot, piped in with a grin that suggested his nerves were tapping out Morse code for panic. We might discover a new form of cosmic yoga. Stretch our atoms in interesting ways. Pass, grumbled Juno, eyes locked on her tablet, her fingers blurring over the device. I prefer my atoms unstretched. Thank you very much. The temple on the Thalkiri homeworld was now the epicenter of chaos, and not the fun, end-of-the-week kind. This was the kind of chaos that threatened to turn you into cosmic spaghetti. And if there was one thing Lyra hated more than danger, it was danger with a side of cosmic horror. Okay, status update. We're caught in some kind of cosmic blender, the sleeper's waking up, and we've got zero answers, Lyra declared, massaging her temples. Anyone got a plan B? Would it help if I told you I'm fresh out of Hail Marys? Dreyfus asked, not even bothering to hide his sarcasm. Not a bit, she shot back. Juno, any luck with those scripts? Juno's face was a picture of concentration, or constipation. Hard to tell with the stressed lines creasing her forehead. I'm trying to decipher ancient Thalkiri texts without a universal translator. It's like trying to code a spacecraft using an abacus and a prayer. Well, pray harder, Lyra said, half joking, half serious. Just then, the ship's communication console chirped, and a new face appeared on the view screen. It was a Thalkiri scholar named Virex, whose expression was one of resigned exasperation. The alien had the look of someone who'd been asked one too many times if he wanted fries with that cosmic disaster. Ah, humans, Virex said, his voice cold enough to chill a sun. Vorax has instructed me to assist you in decoding the scripts, a task I am less than enthusiastic about. Well, aren't you just a ray of sunshine? Lyra muttered under her breath. All right, Virex, let's see what you've got. Virex's tentacles danced over his own set of controls, transmitting data to the ship. The scripts speak of the sleeper, but they are ancient, fragmented. It is a language that has not been spoken in eons, so it's like trying to read your great-granddad's old love letters, Fargo quipped, earning a few chuckles. Only less romantic and more doomsday prophecy, Juno added, finally looking up from her tablet. Well, lucky us, Lyra said, rubbing her eyes. We get to play cosmic archaeologists. Except, with more chances of getting obliterated. Virex's image flickered as he scrolled through the data. This passage here mentions a harmonic resonance. Something about aligning energies to pacify the sleeper. Great, more musical metaphors, Dreyfus grunted. What is this? A cosmic concert? Not exactly, Juno replied, her sarcasm cutting through the tension. More like a cosmic lullaby. We need to hit the right chords or the sleeper gets an extended solo. I don't suppose anyone here is secretly a maestro at alien instruments. Lyra asked, attempting to keep hope alive through humor. Does air guitar count? Fargo offered, the grin on his face more than a little forced. Not unless it can save us from the Black Hole Express, Dreyfus replied. Vrex's image wavered slightly, but the Thalkiri scholar remained focused. This part of the script refers to a series of tones. Each tone corresponds to a different phase of the sleeper's cycle. They must be played in synchrony to achieve the desired effect. Sounds simple enough, Lyra said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. Except for the tiny detail that we have no idea what those tones are. Leave that to me, Juno said, her fingers flying over the tablet like they were on fire. I'll figure it out. I mean, how hard can it be to reverse engineer cosmic sheet music? About as hard as pulling our butts out of the cosmic fire, Dreyfus murmured, not bothering to hide his cynicism. Meanwhile, the gravitational anomalies were making an unholy mess of the nearby colonies. Reports were coming in that entire towns felt like they were on amusement park rides from hell. Not exactly a reassuring thought when you're trying to keep a spaceship from turning into a twisted wreck. Fargo, what's our status? Lyra asked, staring at the swirling madness on the view screen. The ship's holding together, but barely, Fargo replied, his hands steady on the controls, despite the tension that thrummed through the air. Gravity's going wild out there. It's like being caught in a cosmic washing machine. Just what I wanted. Interstellar laundry day, Lyra sighed. Keep us in one piece, Fargo. Don't want to end up as a cautionary tale for space cadets. Doing my best, Cap, Fargo assured her, though his eyes were glued to the outside scenery that was less picturesque and more terrifying. As the ship danced on the edge of disaster, Juno let out a small whoop of triumph. Okay, I think I've got something. According to this, we need to use the ship's systems to replicate these tones. If we get the sequence right, it should stabilize the cosmic chaos. Well, I've always wanted to try my hand at cosmic DJing, Lyra quipped, tapping the controls to bring up the necessary frequencies. Hope you're better at it than you are at poker, Dreyfus said, his expression sardonic. Funny, because I distinctly remember taking all your credits last time we played, Lyra shot back, not missing a beat. Yeah, Dreyfus muttered, though a faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. With Juno's guidance, the crew worked quickly, setting the ship's systems to emit the required tones. Each beep and chirp sounded like an overture to madness, but it was their best bet at stopping the sleeper from turning their ship, and everything nearby, into a cosmic casualty. All right, moment of truth, Juno said, her voice a mix of hope and apprehension. Let's see if we can hit the right notes. As the ship began its strange symphony, the temple's hum shifted, resonating in a way that felt less like an impending doom and more like a tentative ceasefire. The gravitational anomalies outside started to stabilize, the chaos easing into a more manageable, albeit still precarious, situation. Did it work? Dreyfus asked, mirroring the collective thought of the crew. Seems like it, Lyra replied, her relief tempered by caution. But we're not out of the woods yet. Keep those tones steady. The view screen flickered to life once more, Vrex reappearing with a look that might almost be mistaken for respect. You humans are more resourceful than I gave you credit for. The sleeper's rage is abating. Glad to hear it, Lyra said, allowing herself a moment of satisfaction. But let's not celebrate until we're officially not dead. Good policy, Dreyfus agreed, still keeping a wary eye on the readings. As the ship maintained the harmonic resonance, Lyra couldn't help but feel a certain grim satisfaction. They'd managed to stave off disaster for now. But the nagging thought remained. How long could they keep this up? The sleeper was a cosmic force, ancient and unpredictable, and they were just some unlucky fools caught in its orbit. All right, team, Lyra said, rallying her crew. We've managed to hit pause on the cosmic chaos, but let's not get complacent. Keep monitoring those systems, and Juno, keep digging through those scripts. We need to make sure this doesn't turn into a recurring nightmare. Already on it, Captain, Juno replied, her focus unwavering. Fargo, glancing over his shoulder, added, "I'll keep us steady on this cosmic roller coaster. Just make sure we've got an exit plan when this ride's over." "Copy that," Lyra said, her mind already spinning scenarios and contingencies. "And V-Rex, any other pearls of wisdom you'd like to share?" The Valkyrie scholar nodded, the tension in his posture easing just a fraction. "Continue the resonance. Ensure it aligns with the sleeper's cycle. But be aware the cycle is not constant. It shifts like the sands of a distant desert." "Oh, great," Dreyfus groaned. "Because nothing says easy like constantly changing cosmic rhythms." "Good thing we're adaptable," Lyra said, flashing a smile that was half determined, half exasperated. "All right, people, let's keep this cosmic lullaby going. I don't want to be the opening act for a galactic apocalypse." As the ship continued its strange dance, the crew settled into a rhythm of their own, each member playing their part in the bizarre symphony of survival. And while the threat of the sleeper loomed large, Lyra knew one thing for certain: come hell or high gravity, they would face whatever came next with the kind of audacious tenacity that only humans were crazy enough to possess. "Hey, Dreyfus," Lyra called, a spark of mischief in her eyes. "Remind me to add Cosmic DJ to our resumes." Dreyfus chuckled, shaking his head. "Sure thing, Captain. Right after not dying to ancient cosmic gods." With that, the crew continued their dance with destiny, each note a step further from disaster and, hopefully, closer to survival. The ship vibrated beneath them like a jittery caffeine addict, the kind that's considered a war crime on civilized planets. Captain Lyra Trenholm held onto her console, gritting her teeth as the latest wave of gravitational insanity threatened to shake their insides into a galaxy-wide smoothie. "Is it just me, or is the temple shaking harder than a politician caught in a truth serum scandal?" Fargo asked, his fingers white-knuckled around the controls. "For once it's not just you," Dreyfus replied, his sarcasm a welcome constant in the chaos. "The temple's structure is having a panic attack, and we're invited." "Perfect," Lyra muttered, watching the view screen as the temple's ancient stonework began to crumble. "We've gone from cosmic DJ to ruined tourists." "Someone get the postcards." Juno, never one to let the collapsing cosmos ruin her day, tapped frantically at her tablet. "These gravitational anomalies are escalating. The sleeper's cycle is accelerating, and it's playing a damned fast tune. Like a teenager who just discovered punk rock," Dreyfus quipped, crossing his arms. "It's about to blow the speakers. Just make sure it doesn't blow us to the next galaxy," Lyra warned, eyeing the structural failure on the screen. "We need to keep that temple intact long enough to figure out how to put the sleeper back to bed." As if on cue, the view screen blinked with an incoming transmission. V-Rex appeared, looking more irritated than usual, which was saying something for a Valkyrie. "Your interference has angered the sleeper. The sacred temple cannot withstand much more." "Thanks, V-Rex, we hadn't noticed the cosmic Jenga game outside," Lyra replied dryly. "Got any suggestions, or are we just supposed to pray harder, maintain the harmonic resonance?" V-Rex advised, though it sounded more like a demand. "And cease your desecration." "We're trying," Fargo blurted, his stress levels visible in his darting eyes. "But the whole temple is going through a midlife crisis." Lyra could almost hear the alien scholar grinding his non-existent teeth. "Human endeavor does not instill confidence, Captain." "Well, your temple's not exactly giving off a sense of stability either," Lyra shot back, cutting off the transmission with a sigh. "Gotta admire his faith in us," Dreyfus chuckled. "Makes me all warm and fuzzy inside." "If by warm and fuzzy you mean actively on fire, then yeah," Juno added, still focused on her deciphering. "All right, folks. Let's keep our eyes on the prize," Lyra said, rallying her crew. "Juno, any updates on those scripts?" "Still working on it, Captain," Juno said, her brow furrowing in concentration. "The temple's script mentions a failsafe, but it's more cryptic than a politician's promise." "Just what we need. A cosmic puzzle box with a side of doom," Fargo mumbled. "Can't catch a break, can we?" Lyra shook her head, knowing full well that breaks were as rare as a Valkyrie smile. We need to find that failsafe before we're neck-deep in space debris. Dreyfus, leaning back with a casualness that belied the gravity of their situation, muttered, "Seems we've got more than just cosmic mysteries to worry about." The shift in tone got Lyra's attention. "What do you mean?" "Just a feeling," Dreyfus said, his eyes scanning the room with a knowing glint. "Like there's more going on beneath the surface." Before Lyra could probe deeper, an alarm blared through the ship, its shrill tone killing any sense of levity. Fargo checked the readouts, his expression going from worried to "holy crap, who set this on fire in record time?" "Captain, we've got a breach in the hull. Someone's compromised the integrity of the ship systems," Fargo announced, his voice edged with panic. Lyra's mind raced, processing the implications. Betrayal? Now. Couldn't we get a better timing? Juno looked up, her eyes sharp. "Someone on board's not playing fair. And I'd bet my last rations bar they're trying to sabotage our efforts." "Great," Lyra said, her sarcasm barely masking her fury. "Just what we need, an internal saboteur. And here I was worried about the sleeper. Now I've got a mutiny to deal with. Whoever's behind this knew exactly what they were doing," Dreyfus added, his voice dark. "It's like having a rat chewing through the power cables." "A very determined rat," Juno agreed, already tapping into the ship's diagnostics to assess the damage. "All right, everyone, eyes peeled," Lyra commanded, her voice rising above the chaos. "Find out who's responsible and plug this leak before it sinks us." Fargo, shaking his head in disbelief, muttered, "We're supposed to be fighting cosmic forces, not each other." "Welcome to human nature, Fargo," Dreyfus said, his words dry but bitter. "We're our own worst enemies." Juno's fingers danced across her tablet, her expression fierce. "I'm locking down all non-essential systems. If they've got access, they won't for long." "Good thinking," Lyra said. "And maybe we can use this to our advantage. Whoever it is will be scrambling to cover their tracks." "Got it," Juno replied, already sifting through access logs like a determined targ beast on the scent. The rest of the crew felt the tension tighten like a vice. Vrex's voice intruded on their thoughts, echoing through the ship's speakers. "Humans, your time runs thin. The sleeper's wrath approaches." Lyra rolled her eyes, muttering, "Just what I needed. An alien clock ticking down to doomsday." She turned her attention back to her crew, her eyes sharp. "Let's find the snake in our midst and deal with them. I refuse to go down without a fight." As Juno delved into the records, Lyra glanced at Dreyfus. His expression was calm, but she could sense the gears turning behind his eyes. "You think we've got a chance?" she asked, her voice low. "Stakes are high, odds are low," Dreyfus replied, ever the realist. "But I've seen worse hands played." "Not exactly reassuring," Fargo muttered, his attention split between flying and fretting. "Look on the bright side," Dreyfus said, a ghost of a grin on his face. "If we go out, at least we'll be infamous." Lyra snorted, shaking her head. "Let's aim for survival before fame." "All right." Meanwhile, the anomalies outside were ramping up their cosmic dance, the temple's stones shivering in concurrence. The sleeper's presence was like a creeping shadow, stretching out to envelop their ship. Lyra held onto her seat, feeling the weight of the universe pressing down on her shoulders. She was a captain, sure, but how do you steer a ship through a storm of betrayal and cosmic wrath? Juno's voice cut through her thoughts. "I've got something. Access logs show unauthorized system overrides from engineering. It's someone with clearance." "Figures," Dreyfus said, his eyes narrowing. "Someone's playing both sides, and now we've got a name." "Almost," Juno replied, her determination palpable. "Just give me a minute. Let's not take longer than we need," Lyra urged, glancing at the temple that loomed on the view screen like a judgmental grandfather. "The sooner we deal with this traitor, the sooner we can focus on not dying." "Copy that, Captain," Juno said, finally letting out a triumphant breath. "I've got a name." "It's—" The ship shuddered violently, cutting off Juno mid-sentence. The view screen exploded with static, and alarms wailed like banshees on payday. "What the hell was that?" Fargo shouted, his grip on the controls tightening as the ship bucked like a wild beast. Internal explosion, Dreyfus barked, his expression grim. Sabotage couldn't be more obvious if it wore a sign. Damage report. Lyra demanded, her heart pounding in her chest. Juno, fingers flying, replied, we've lost secondary power. If we don't stabilize, we're space dust. Great, just great, Lyra muttered. Fargo, keep us steady. Dreyfus, arm up. We've got a snake to smoke out, on it, Dreyfus said, moving with a purpose that promised retribution. As the ship's system struggled to maintain control, the crew was left with the grim realization that their struggle was twofold. Not only did they face the wrath of an ancient cosmic force, but treachery within their own ranks threatened to unravel them from the inside. We're not done yet, folks, Lyra said, her voice a rallying cry. Let's find this traitor, keep the ship in one piece, and make sure that sleeper stays asleep. With a final nod, they moved forward, each step a defiance against the odds stacked against them. In the dark void of space, under the shadow of a temple's crumbling majesty, the fight for survival continued, a fight against ancient wrath and human betrayal alike. And if they had anything to say about it, they weren't going down easy. Not today. The ship groaned like an old man rising from a creaky chair, a symphony of tortured metal and stressed circuits. Lyra Trenholm braced herself against the control panel, eyeing the flickering displays with the sort of resigned irritation usually reserved for a cat knocking over a vase. Another day, another potential catastrophe. We're on a countdown to cosmic obliteration, and all I've got is this lousy blaster, she muttered, half to herself, half to the blinking lights that seemed to judge her life choices. She patted the weapon at her hip, acknowledging it wasn't much in the face of an ancient entity with a grudge. Dreyfus, lounging as only he could in the middle of a crisis, added his take. You know, I always thought space was vast and empty. Turns out it's mostly filled with problems. Like an overstuffed closet, just waiting to spill out, Juno quipped, her focus split between her tablet and the chaos outside. The temple, that ancient pile of cosmic Jenga blocks, continued its slow crumble, sinking with the ship's own internal discord. Lyra's gaze was drawn back to the view screen, where Vrex's sire expression had become a permanent fixture. I thought we cut him off, she grumbled, now seriously considering the blaster for more than show. How's he still nagging us? The Valkyrie have ways, Dreyfus replied, voice dripping with sarcasm. Skillful communicators, especially when they are unhappy, which is always, Juno added. Their faces are like a mood ring stuck on perpetually pissed. Vrex's voice crackled through the static, a stern reprimand dressed in alien disdain. Your actions continue to disrupt the sleeper's cycle. You must desist immediately. Lyra didn't bother responding. She had bigger fish to fry, and right now, those fish were flopping around in the form of a saboteur on her own ship. Juno, any closer to pinpointing our mysterious saboteur? Getting there, Captain, Juno replied, her fingers dancing over the controls with a precision that suggested she might be better suited to playing a high-stakes piano recital than sifting through ship diagnostics. Good, Lyra said. We need to solve this mystery before we're playing our final tune. Speaking of tunes, the sleeper's cycle. It's accelerating, Fargo piped up, turning from the helm with eyes that had seen too much for one day. Feels like we're seconds away from the universe's worst alarm clock going off. Great, Lyra sighed, just what I need. A cosmic snooze button we can't reach. The ship shuddered violently, as if agreeing with her dire assessment. Somewhere deep within its bowels, systems were failing with the kind of finality usually reserved for tax audits or jury duty summons. Captain, I think the wormhole's destabilizing, Fargo continued, his voice tight with the kind of panic that comes from knowing you might be about to invent a new definition of disaster. Lyra's heart sank. Of course it is. Because why not add a spatial anomaly to our list of nightmares? Dreyfus, never one to miss an opportunity for gallows humor, offered, hey, maybe we can market this as a new interstellar theme park. Experience the thrill of catastrophe. Yeah, and charge extra for the Don't Die VIP pass, Juno shot back, her voice carrying a nervous edge. Lyra shook her head, focusing past the gallows humor and into the reality of their situation. With the wormhole threatening to tear apart not just the ship but the whole sector, they were living on borrowed time. And the debt collector had a penchant for destruction. "All right, team," Lyra commanded, pulling them back to the task at hand. "Keep those diagnostics coming, Juno. Dreyfus, arm everyone capable of holding a blaster. If we're going to dance with doom, we'll do it armed." "Aye, Captain," Dreyfus replied, already moving with a sense of purpose that usually only emerged when someone's life was on the line. Which, in this case, was everyone's life. Fargo worked the controls with a grim determination, coaxing as much stability as possible from a ship determined to fall apart. "Navigation's shot to hell, Captain. I'm doing what I can, but this old bird's got a mind of her own." "Then do what you're best at, Fargo," Lyra said, her tone as firm as the situation required. "Keep us afloat for as long as possible." "Aye, Captain. I'll play the best game of chicken with the cosmos that I can," Fargo replied, hands tight on the controls. Juno's voice cut through the din, an island of stability amidst the chaos. "I've narrowed it down, Captain. The saboteur's been operating from Deck B near engineering." "Deck B, huh?" Dreyfus said, already armed and ready. "Sounds like a field trip's in order." Lyra nodded, determined. "Let's find out who's decided to switch teams and give them a proper welcome back." As if hearing their resolve, the ship offered up another groan, a creaking symphony of metal fatigue and stressed circuits. "Looks like the ship's with us," Lyra quipped. "Let's just hope she holds together long enough for us to get some answers." The crew moved with a purpose that belied the chaos surrounding them, a single unit determined to see this through. As they made their way toward Deck B, the ship's corridors echoed with the distant rumble of cosmic forces playing merry hell with reality. "Feels like walking through a funhouse, doesn't it?" Dreyfus remarked, his blaster at the ready. "Except with more death and less candy," Juno replied, her tablet still clutched in her hands like a lifeline. "Ah, but the stakes are higher," Fargo chimed in, his own weapon ready for any surprises. "Bet you won't find that in the brochure." As they approached the suspected area, the tension mounted, each step pregnant with the possibility of danger. "All right, folks, eyes sharp," Lyra commanded, her own weapon raised as they entered the section. "Let's see who's been pulling our strings." The corridors were dimly lit, the flickering lights casting shadows that danced with ill intent. The air was thick with the ship's anxiety, as if even the metal knew more was at stake than just its own survival. "Juno, which way?" Lyra asked, voice low, eyes scanning the passageways. "Left, then straight ahead," Juno replied, her eyes glued to the data streaming across her screen. They moved with caution, the kind you reserve for defusing bombs or telling your boss they've got something in their teeth. The air seemed to hum with potential violence, and Lyra felt the weight of her choices pressing down with merciless gravity. And then they saw it, movement at the end of the corridor. A figure backlit by the dim emergency lighting crouched over a panel, hands working with the kind of speed that spoke of desperation. "Hey," Lyra called out, raising her weapon. "Stand down." The figure didn't respond, didn't even flinch. Instead, their movements accelerated, a frantic rhythm that promised nothing good. "Should have guessed," Dreyfus muttered, stepping forward with his blaster aimed. No one ever listens the first time. The figure finally turned, revealing a face twisted with fear and determination. It was Rook, a technician Lyra barely remembered hiring. His eyes were wide, mouth set in a grim line. "Rook," Lyra said, her voice a mix of disbelief and anger. "What's the meaning of this?" "I had no choice," Rook replied, voice shaking but firm. "You don't understand what's at stake. Enlighten us," Juno said, her own weapon trained, ready for any sudden moves. "They promised freedom," Rook said, meeting Lyra's gaze with a plea. "A chance to leave this all behind, to escape the cycle of destruction, by blowing us to pieces." Fargo barked. Some escape plan, you don't get it, Rook insisted, fingers still hovering over the controls he'd been manipulating. The sleeper, they said it would cleanse. Oh, spare me, Dreyfus cut in, rolling his eyes. Typical cultist drivel. Let's cut to the chase. Lyra stepped forward, feeling the weight of command settle on her like an ill-fitting suit. Rook, we're all in this together. Sinking us doesn't save anyone. But they promised, Rook began, only to be cut off by the ship's violent shudder, as if the universe was disagreeing with his choices. And look where that's got you, Lyra said, voice firm, eyes hard. We need every hand on deck to put the sleeper back to sleep, not wake it up. Rook hesitated, the conflict evident on his face. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Then help us fix it, Lyra pressed, sensing the crack in his resolve. Before it's too late for any of us. There was a tense moment, the kind that stretched like a spacewalk tether, fragile and easily snapped. Then Rook nodded, his shoulders slumping as if the weight of his decisions had finally registered. All right, he said, stepping away from the panel, hands raised in surrender. I'll help. Good choice, Dreyfus said, lowering his weapon slightly but keeping it ready. You've picked the right side of history. Juno moved in, securing the panel and checking the damage. We've got work to do, Captain. Systems are a mess, but we can stabilize if we act fast. Lyra nodded, her relief tempered by the knowledge that they were still far from safe. Let's get to it then. And Rook, yes, Captain, stick close. You've got some explaining to do, but first you've got a ship to help save. As they turned to leave, the ship offered up another groan, a weary protest against the burdens placed upon it. But this time, there was a sense of purpose behind the sound, an echo of the crew's determination to see this through. They moved with renewed vigor, each step a defiance against the odds stacked against them. And in the shadow of the temple, under the watchful eye of a sleeper that threatened to awaken, the human spirit burned bright, a relentless refusal to go quietly into the void. With Rook now in their ranks, they pressed onward, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For in the depths of the darkest Ior there was a glimmer of hope, a promise that they would not go down without a fight. Not today. All right, folks, Captain Lyra Trenholm said, staring at the mess of wires, circuits, and cosmic gibberish laid out in front of them. We've got a literal alien crossword puzzle, and about as much time to solve it as a snowball in hell. V-Rex, please tell me you've got some good news. V-Rex, the Valkyrie representative with all the warmth of a glacier, looked up with an expression that might have been a smile if you squinted under bad lighting. Captain Trenholm, I believe I have deciphered a crucial part of the ancient script. It outlines a ritual to communicate with, the cosmic bastard threatening to turn us into stardust. Dreyfus cut in, leaning against the wall with his usual air of disenchanted amusement. Yes, V-Rex replied, unfazed by the cynicism. The sleeper. Well, let's hope it's more of a polite conversation and less of a cosmic smackdown, Lyra muttered, feeling the weight of their predicament. Juno, how's our system holding up? Juno glanced up from her tablet, her eyes serious despite the sarcasm she'd held through the chaos. We've got temporary patches keeping things from complete meltdown, but we're one hiccup away from a rather explosive happy ending. Perfect, Fargo mumbled, hands dancing over the controls like a virtuoso trying to coax music from a stubborn instrument. Nothing like a touch of pressure to spice things up. Lyra looked at her team, a ragtag collection of humans and one diplomatically psi or alien, and felt a strange sense of camaraderie. All right, team, let's get this ritual set up. V-Rex, you'll need to guide us through the Valkyrie part. Dreyfus, make sure our illustrious saboteur doesn't accidentally screw us over. Dreyfus nodded and gave Rook a sidelong glance that suggested any funny business would result in him exploring the vacuum of space firsthand. Rook, to his credit, seemed appropriately cowed. V-Rex, what's step one? Lyra asked, feeling every second tick by like the countdown on a bad B-movie bomb. The runes must be arranged to harmonize with the sleeper's frequency. V-Rex explained, pointing at the indecipherable symbols etched into the ship's material like a cosmic graffiti tag. It's crucial that the sequence is perfect, or we risk, well, annihilation. Nothing like a touch of annihilation to keep things interesting, Fargo chimed in, his dry humor earning a snort from Juno. Juno, you're our tech wizard. Can you handle these runes? Lyra asked, turning to her. Juno nodded, already absorbed in the data. Yeah, I'll give it my best shot, Captain. Just another day at the cosmic theme park we call life. Great. Dreyfus, you and Fargo get the ship ready for whatever might come our way. If this ritual works, we'll need to be in prime position to react. Dreyfus pushed off the wall, that insufferable grin still in place. Sure thing, Captain. I'll make sure we either witness a miracle or go out with a bang. V-Rex, you better hope your translations are spot on. I'd hate to find out we've been reciting ancient Valkyrie recipes instead of a ritual, Lyra said, attempting to lighten the oppressive mood. V-Rex's equivalent of a chuckle, a sound like a bag of gravel being shaken, filled the air. Captain, I assure you this is no recipe. But if it were, I fear the dish might be explosive. Great, Lyra sighed. Just what we need. Cosmic baking gone wrong. The crew set to work, each member slipping into their role with a kind of practiced chaos. Juno deciphered the runes, her fingers moving rapidly across her tablet as she cross-referenced data faster than an accountant in a tax audit nightmare. Fargo and Dreyfus prepped the ship for whatever might follow, whether it be a peaceful resolution or an express ticket to oblivion. Lyra could feel the tension mounting, a pressure cooker of nerves and anticipation. She moved between her crew, offering a supportive word here, a sarcastic comment there, trying to keep spirits up even as their odds seemed to shrink by the second. Rook, Lyra said, catching the technician's eye. You're gonna help Juno. Make sure those runes are set right, and try not to get us all killed, okay? Rook nodded, an earnestness in his eyes that suggested he fully appreciated the gravity of his previous actions. Yes, Captain, I'm on it. As the ritual began to take shape, Lyra felt a strange calm descend over the chaos. It was the kind of clarity that came when you had nothing left to lose, when every action mattered because each could be your last. All right, V-Rex. We're counting on you to guide us through this cosmic dance, Lyra said, taking her place as the captain of a ship on the brink of disaster or salvation. Indeed, Captain, V-Rex replied, positioning himself at the center of the runic circle. Let us awaken the sleeper's attention. Gently, gently, Dreyfus echoed, cocking an eyebrow. That's the key word here. The air in the bridge grew heavy as Juno and Rook worked feverishly on the final adjustments. Lyra watched them with a mix of anxiety and pride, her crew dysfunctional but determined, a testament to the human spirit's refusal to quit. Here goes nothing, Juno murmured, pressing a final sequence on her tablet. The runes began to glow, an eerie luminescence that filled the bridge with a light that was anything but comforting. As the ritual commenced, a low hum filled the ship, vibrating through the walls and into their bones. The lights flickered, and for a moment Lyra thought they might be on the verge of something monumental or catastrophic. Hold your positions, Lyra commanded, voice steady despite the storm of doubt swirling within her. The hum grew louder, resonating with a frequency that seemed to reach deep into their souls. Lyra felt an odd sensation, as if she was standing on the edge of a chasm, peering into the unknown. And then a voice, not one of their own but something vast and ancient, echoed through the ship. It wasn't a voice that spoke in words but in sensations, in the tremors that ran through the very fabric of space. Is that the sleeper? Fargo asked, his voice betraying a hint of awe. That would be my guess, Dreyfus replied, his usual flippancy tempered by the magnitude of what they were facing. The sleeper's presence was overwhelming, a force that seemed to bend reality around it. Lyra felt the pressure of its gaze, a cosmic awareness that dwarfed anything she'd ever known. V-Rex, now would be a good time to tell us what comes next, Lyra said, fighting to keep her voice from trembling. V-Rex, unfazed by the colossal presence, continued with the ritual, his voice a calm anchor amidst the storm. We must pledge our intent, to seek harmony, not destruction. Speak your truth, Captain. Lyra took a breath, steeling herself against the immensity of the moment. Sleeper, we come not to disturb but to coexist. We seek peace, a chance to continue our journey without conflict. The hum shifted, a ripple of acknowledgement from the sleeper. It was as if the universe held its breath, waiting to see if this fragile plea would be enough. Fargo, how's the ship holding? Lyra asked, eyes still on the glowing runes. By the skin of its teeth, Captain, Fargo replied, fingers tense on the controls. But she's hanging in there. Let's hope she keeps it up, Lyra murmured, feeling the weight of their fate poised on a razor's edge. The ritual continued, a delicate dance between human and cosmic, each moment stretching into eternity. Vrex's voice guided them, a steady litany of Thalkiri wisdom that seemed to resonate with the sleeper's presence. And then, as abruptly as it began, the hum ceased. The runes dimmed, their glow fading into the mundane reality of the ship's lighting. There was a pause, a silence that stretched into infinity. Did it work? Juno asked, breaking the stillness. Lyra glanced at Vrex, searching for confirmation. The Thalkiri's expression was unreadable, his alien features a mask of serene contemplation. It appears the sleeper has heard us, Vrex said slowly, his tone cautiously optimistic. The cycle may yet be altered. May is the operative word there, Dreyfus murmured, ever the skeptic. Lyra felt a flicker of hope, tempered by the knowledge that their journey was far from over. But for now they'd taken a step, a small, significant step. All right, let's get this ship back in working order, Lyra commanded the captain once more. We've got a lot to patch up and not much time to do it. On it, Captain, Fargo replied, already turning back to his controls with renewed energy. Juno stretched, a weary smile playing on her lips. Well, that was fun. Let's never do it again. Agreed, Lyra said with a chuckle, feeling the tension begin to ease. But let's not celebrate too soon. We've still got a hell of a mess to clean up. The crew moved with purpose, a unit forged in the fires of adversity, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They worked with the grim determination of survivors, those who'd stared into the abyss and refused to blink. And as they set about repairing their ship, Lyra couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in her ragtag team. They'd done the impossible, or at the very least the improbable. And they'd done it with style, or something close to it. Vrex, Lyra said, turning to the Thalkiri, thank you. Without your help, we'd be cosmic toast. Vrex nodded, his expression inscrutable. It was in our mutual interest, Captain. But I am pleased we may have found a path forward. Here's hoping, Dreyfus said with his signature smirk. And if not, it's been a hell of a ride. Amen to that, Juno agreed, sharing a wry smile with the rest of the crew. As they worked to restore the ship, a glimmer of hope threaded through the chaos, a promise that they'd continue fighting, continue surviving. For in the vast expanse of space, amidst the stars and shadow, the human spirit shone bright, a light against the dark, a refusal to surrender to the night. Lyra Trenholm stood at the helm of her beleaguered ship, staring into the abyss of the Thalkiri temple that now glowed with an unsettling luminescence. It was the kind of glow that promised either divine enlightenment or annihilation, a cosmic coin flip. She'd have preferred actual coins. At least they didn't threaten to unravel reality on a bad day. All right, folks, she announced, pulling her gaze back from the temple's view screen. Time to convince an ancient cosmic entity not to use us as interstellar confetti. Piece of cake, Dreyfus muttered from his post, though his expression suggested it was more of a poisoned cupcake. Juno and Rook were still huddled over the control panel, their combined efforts like two kids trying to fix a broken video game console before their parents found out. Juno, how's it look? Lyra asked, resisting the urge to use her blaster on the machinery out of sheer frustration. Stable-ish, Juno replied, which in Juno speak meant, we're one sneeze away from disaster. Her fingers danced over the tablet, inputting data faster than most people could think. Rook nodded, his earnest expression suggesting he might have found religion in those runes. The harmonic resonance is maintaining, Captain. For now, Well, let's hope that for now lasts a bit longer than our last interstellar peace treaty, Lyra quipped, recalling the disaster that was the Galactic Summit of '87. Who knew space diplomats could throw such punches? V-Rex, the ever-stoic Valkyrie representative, stood amidst the chaos like a philosophical rock in the turbulent stream of human panic. Captain, we must proceed with the dialogue. The sleeper's attention is focused. I didn't know cosmic beings could have ADHD, Fargo snorted, though he didn't ease up on the controls, his fingers a blur of tension and precision. Lyra took a deep breath, stepping up to the proverbial microphone. Sleeper, hear us out. We're just passing through, definitely not here to redecorate your temple or pilfer your cosmic secrets. Just friendly travelers hoping to avoid an awkward confrontation. The vessel shuddered slightly, a gentle reminder of the sleeper's looming presence. It was like conversing with a deity that had a penchant for dramatic pauses. V-Rex gestured towards the runic circle, his expression unreadable. Captain, it is crucial we convey sincerity. The sleeper perceives intent, not merely words. Ah, yes, intent. Because nothing says I mean what I say like a bunch of desperate humans on a malfunctioning spaceship, Lyra said dryly, glancing at her crew to emphasize her point. The air around them seemed to thrum with an otherworldly energy, as if the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting for their next move. Dreyfus leaned back, arms crossed over his chest, his smirk barely hiding the tension lining his jaw. Cosmic entities, man, he murmured, shaking his head. They always need you to bare your soul. Can't just take a handshake and move on like regular folks. Tell me about it, Juno agreed, adjusting a control with surgical precision. I once had a toaster that was more forgiving than this. They were in uncharted territory, both literally and figuratively. But then again, that was the story of their lives. Lyra let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. All right, sleeper. Here it is. We're not here to wake you up or throw off your groove. We're just as lost in this universe as you are, and we'd appreciate not being turned into cosmic dust. The ship's hum settled into a softer, more comforting rhythm, like the universe had decided it might just give them the benefit of the doubt. The view screen displayed a ripple of colors, a cosmic light show that seemed to communicate something. Is that good? Fargo asked, his eyes flicking to the fluctuating lights. Depends, Juno said with a shrug. Either it's a cosmic thumbs up or we're about to find out what the universe looks like from the inside out. Lyra turned to V-Rex, searching for confirmation in his alien demeanor. Well, V-Rex. Are we on the right track? The Valkyrie's gravelly voice carried a hint of satisfaction. The sleeper acknowledges your sincerity. The cycle may yet be altered. May, Dreyfus echoed, rolling his eyes. Why do these cosmic types always hedge their bets? Just our luck, huh? Rook added, his voice tinged with wry amusement. We get a cosmic being that's got a lawyer's vocabulary. The ship, still groaning under the pressure of the sleeper's presence, seemed to ease up, as if agreeing that maybe, just maybe, it wouldn't fall apart at the seams today. Lyra felt a flicker of hope burn a bit brighter, an ember in the darkness. All right, let's not screw this up, she said, more to herself than anyone else, though the sentiment was one they all shared. The temple's eerie glow began to fade, its light receding back into the depths as if the sleeper had decided to take a cosmic nap, satisfied with their earnest plea. For now, the universe had decided not to crush them into oblivion. A win in Lyra's books. Looks like we're on the guest list for the next cosmic soiree, Dreyfus said, finally cracking a genuine grin. Great. Let's just hope they don't serve up existential dread as the main course, Juno replied, her voice laced with relief. Fargo, ever the pragmatist, remained focused on the controls. Captain, the gravitational anomalies are stabilizing. We might just make it out of this in one piece. Good. I'd hate to lose all the best bits of our ship to a cosmic misunderstanding, Lyra quipped, the tension in her shoulders finally beginning to unwind. V-Rex, his role in the cosmic negotiation complete, stepped back, his expression one of quiet satisfaction. Captain, your approach has proven effective. The Valkyrie will remember this. Lyra nodded, grateful but wary. Well, let's not pop the champagne just yet. We've still got to get out of here without causing another interstellar incident, or waking up another sleeper, Rook added, his face lighting up with a mixture of relief and residual anxiety. Yeah, let's make that a priority, Juno agreed, packing away her tablet as if it were a weapon she'd just disarmed. As the last of the runic glow faded and the ship systems began to stabilize, Lyra allowed herself a moment of reflection. They'd done it, navigated a cosmic crisis with nothing more than a few quips, some technical wizardry, and a bit of good old-fashioned human charm. It was the stuff of legends, or, at the very least, a cautionary tale for future space travelers. All right, let's get this rust bucket back in shape and head home, Lyra commanded, the captain once again, though this time with a bit more pep in her step. Aye, Captain, Fargo replied, already diving into a flurry of controls as he guided the ship away from the Valkyrie's cosmic playground. Rook, Juno, how long till we're fully operational? Lyra asked, her mind already ticking through the next steps. Give us an hour or maybe two, Juno said, her voice steady with the promise of normalcy. But we'll get her humming like a comet in no time. Great. Let's make sure this ship's ready for the next brush with cosmic lunacy, Lyra replied, the humor in her voice a balm against the frayed nerves of her crew. Dreyfus, ever the cynic, leaned back with a sigh. You know, I'm starting to think we might just be the luckiest unlucky crew in the galaxy. Is there a medal for that? Fargo asked, a grin hinting at the corners of his mouth. There should be, Juno replied with a chuckle, her fingers flying over the controls. The ship, their trusty and sometimes temperamental companion, began its slow crawl away from the temple, the gravitational anomalies diminishing with each passing moment. They were still far from safety, but they were moving in the right direction, and sometimes that was enough. Lyra turned to V-Rex, a nod of respect shared between them. Thank you, V-Rex. Without your help, we'd have been toast. V-Rex inclined his head, the alien equivalent of a smile playing across his features. It was mutually beneficial, Captain. The sleeper's cycle will adjust. For now, peace prevails. Let's hope that sticks, Rook said, offering a hand to V-Rex in a gesture of camaraderie. The Valkyrie accepted, a bridge between species, forged in the heat of a shared crisis. It was a reminder that, despite the vastness of space and the gulf between cultures, there was always room for understanding, assuming you didn't get obliterated first. As they worked to patch up the ship, the crew settled into a comfortable rhythm. Repairs were made, systems rebooted, and slowly, painstakingly, they began to piece together the remnants of their shaken world. Lyra watched her crew with pride. A ragtag band of misfits who'd somehow managed to navigate the impossible and come out the other side. They were battered, bruised, but unbroken. And in the grand scheme of things, that was a victory worth savoring. Let's keep this ship together, folks, she said, her voice carrying a note of optimism that had been absent for far too long. We've got a universe to explore and stories to tell. Aye, Captain, came the echo from her crew, a chorus of weary but determined voices. As they drifted away from the temple, leaving behind the mysteries of the Valkyrie and their sleeper, Lyra knew they'd be back. Maybe not here, maybe not soon, but somewhere in the vast expanse of space. Because for all its dangers and dark corners, the universe was a place of infinite possibility, and the human spirit was nothing if not adventurous. The last echoes of the sleeper's cosmic snore faded into the abyss, leaving behind a silence so thick you could spread it on toast. Captain Lyra Trenholm stood at the helm of her beleaguered ship, a grin tugging at the corners of her mouth. It wasn't every day you sweet-talked a cosmic entity back to sleep with nothing but a handful of sarcasm and the universal currency of sincerity. She turned to her crew, a ragtag bunch of grim survivors who somehow still had their wits intact. Okay, folks, she said, clapping her hands together in a gesture that was half cheerleader, half drill sergeant. Let's see if we can't make something out of this cosmic cluster. Opportunity, Dreyfus interjected, eyebrows raised like punctuation marks. I'm pretty sure we're supposed to call it an opportunity now. Right, Lyra nodded. Opportunity. A cosmic opportunity to not get turned into star dust. Juno was back at her station, fingers flying over the tablet like a pianist at concert. Systems are almost back online. We might even get to keep the ship in one piece. Or most of it anyway. Great, Rook chimed in from behind a panel of blinking lights. Because I was getting real tired of the whole floating in space waiting to die vibe we had going on. That's the spirit, Lyra said, offering a wink that was both a morale boost and a plea for sanity. Now, let's get this bucket into shape and head back to civilization before anyone, or anything, changes their mind. As the ship hummed back to life like a sleepy giant waking from a nap, V-Rex stood in the corner, his Valkyrie presence still an oddity on the bridge. His gray skin and bulbous eyes made him look as alien as, well, an alien among humans. Lyra approached him, arms crossed, her expression a mixture of relief and caution. V-Rex, I appreciate your help down there. You made a difference, she said. And I'm sure the Valkyrie will have a lot to say about this little encounter. V-Rex gave a solemn nod. The Valkyrie value actions more than words, Captain Trenholm. Your crew has shown great resilience. You turned the tide of an ancient cycle. Well, that's a first, Dreyfus muttered from his console. Usually the only thing we turn is the ship, away from trouble. A new day, Dreyfus, Lyra replied, patting him on the shoulder. Let's make the most of it. V-Rex continued, casting his alien gaze over the crew with something akin to admiration. Our peoples have a long history of mistrust. Today you have forged a new path. Fargo snorted, not one to take compliments gracefully. If by forged a new path you mean didn't die horribly, then yeah, we're experts at that. Let's not knock it, Juno said, leaning back with a satisfied stretch. Survival's an underrated skill set these days. Lyra faced her crew, letting the gravity of the moment soak in. We might just be a speck in the grand scheme of the galaxy, but today we proved that we humans can hold our own even in the face of overwhelming odds. Rook chuckled, checking a gauge that looked suspiciously optimistic. I think we just became the galaxy's most unlikely heroes, the underdogs of the universe. Underdogs, Dreyfus repeated, rolling the word around in his mouth like a fine wine. I can get behind that. People love an underdog story. So what's next? Fargo asked, eyes narrowing on the control panel as if it might offer up a list of cosmic to-dos. We head back, Lyra said, her tone decisive and hopeful, and tell the universe what we've done here, maybe make a few friends along the way. Couldn't hurt to have the Valkyrie as allies when you're poking around the stars. The ship, creaking like an old man stretching after a long nap, began its journey away from the temple. Lyra couldn't help but glance back at the fading silhouette of the structure. In the vacuum of space, it stood as a testament to the possibilities of cooperation and the razor-thin line between salvation and destruction. You know, Juno said, her voice cutting through the hum of the ship, there's a lot of junk out in the universe, but sometimes you find a piece that fits. You're talking about the temple or us? Rook asked, a smile in his voice. Both, she replied, tapping the side of her temple with a knowing look. Somehow we fit. V-Rex, who had been watching the exchange with his usual inscrutable expression, interjected. The Valkyrie shall remember this day. An alliance forged in crisis holds the weight of worlds. Let's just hope it's not the weight that sinks us, Lyra said with a half-hearted laugh. She turned back to the view screen, the stars slipping past like memories fading into the dark. As the ship found its rhythm, the crew settled into their routine, a strange sort of peace descending upon them. They were alive, they had made a difference, and for the first time in a long time, there was more than just a glimmer of hope on the horizon. Lyra's voice carried through the bridge, steady and strong. All right, everyone, let's see where our luck takes us next. Hopefully somewhere with a decent bar, Dreyfus added dryly. I could use a drink after all that existential near-death nonsense. Here, here, Juno agreed, raising an imaginary glass in toast. As they navigated away from the Valkyrie homeworld, leaving behind the cosmic playground of ancient gods and glowing temples, the crew couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. They'd faced the abyss and lived to joke about it. Lyra leaned back in her chair, a deep breath escaping her lips. The weight of the galaxy seemed just a bit lighter. You know, maybe we're not the luckiest crew out here, but we've got something better. Yeah? Fargo asked, skeptical but curious. Each other, she said, knowing full well how cheesy it sounded. And that's something you can't put a price on. Dreyfus snorted, shaking his head. Careful, Captain. Next you'll be telling us we're a family. Call it what you will, Lyra replied with a grin. But I'd rather face the unknown with this crew than any other. The bridge filled with a comfortable silence, the hum of the ship a gentle reassurance that they were still together, still fighting the good fight, one cosmic challenge at a time. As they drifted further from the Valkyrie's cosmic puzzle, the universe opened up before them, vast and full of potential. For all its dangers and uncertainties, space was a place of infinite possibility, and humans, they had a knack for making even the bleakest of odds work in their favor. Lyra watched the stars slip by, a quiet resolve settling over her. They had a long way to go, but for now, that was enough. Rook's voice broke the silence. So, what's our next adventure, Captain? Lyra didn't miss a beat. Whatever the universe throws our way, and we'll face it like we always do, with a smirk and a blaster. Famous last words, Dreyfus said, though his tone carried an undercurrent of admiration. As if we'd have it any other way, Juno added, her voice a soothing balm against the backdrop of the cosmos. The ship sailed forward, a vessel of unlikely heroes, ready to take on the next challenge, the next mystery, the next cosmic enigma. For the universe was vast and full of peril and wonder, but the crew of the Starbreaker, they were ready. For once in their lives, they felt like they could change the stars.